Daggerheart.
Daggerheart.
Welcome to Lawfully Chaotic Season 3, Episode 7. I am Brian Weiss of RPG and Company, and with me, as always,
is Jason Baldrick with TTRPG Academy. How's everybody doing? Have we had our sufficient nerd pills yet today? I've really enjoyed watching all the peoples out there that have been discovering Daggerheart recently. It's interesting.
I have
interesting.
Yeah, so obviously we're talking about Daggerheart tonight, which a lot of us have been eagerly awaiting. Thank you for joining us, by the way. Colin, good to see you. Over at Instagram, we've got Team Drew's Basement and Jacob Mr. Ka. I hope I pronounced that right. But anyway,
we should just do like a whole thing with you fucking butchering names.
Yeah, right.
Thank
and
you,
3 miles.
Like
Swedish chef. I wish well, we could skip announcements. But I was well, first of all, thank you
to skip announcements because let's be totally honest. Announcements.
So okay, announcements. All right. So
fun.
First announcement is I got to play in your game Sunday for the past 2 Sundays, actually.
Yeah, what are you thinking so far?
I think it's fucking awesome. I finally get to see you in action as a DM, as a storyteller, interact with you, through the eyebrows. And I've been having a blast. It's awesome.
It's
now that I also don't get to play a ton.
You don't get to play at all, except for the handful of games that the one or two
my
games
OG
that you get to run.
No, my OG peeps and I still, Matt and Jeff and Gary, we still play, but we're averaging like once a month.
Yeah, that's a lot.
So anyway, thank you for that. It is tons of fun.
Yeah. An homage to the movie that came out, and I was really inspired.
Yeah.
By it, and you guys are officially on the run now. That's the best part.
I know. I actually just rewatched the D&D movie last week, and you know what? Now that the hoopla is over and everything, you know what? It's a fun fucking movie. They did a good job. Yeah,
back in our day, we used to use hoopla all the time as a standard word.
Hooplas. But it's a fun movie. But so anyway. I have started to delve into the Daggerheart rules a little bit. I had a crazy 2 weeks. As you know, a dear friend of mine passed away last week. So I was dealing with that, which is why we didn't have shows. So my thanks to everybody for indulging us the time off. But consequently, I've been catching up on things work-wise. So I've just been busy as hell. I haven't delved into the game as much as I would like. But so far, what I've seen is fucking awesome. I love it.
Yeah.
What do you got? What do you got in the way of announcements? And then let's start talking about this.
Let's see. I've got a Friday table that's going to open March 29th. That is probably already full. Well, I'm going to talk about Helldivers. I talked about them a little bit in one of the previous episodes. In the near future, I'm going to talk about them again because just proof that in the big scheme of multi-billion-dollar AAA companies, you have these little companies like Critical Role and Darrington Press kind of sneaking up on you and putting out, the little fellas are...
You know what I just realized?
What's that?
I put the live stream up on RPG and Company instead of Lawfully Chaotic.
You're such a dumbass.
But we have 3 new people that have never joined before, so...
What a dumbass.
Who's the dumbass? Anyway, we're all the same family here. Doesn't matter. So anyway,
funny,
go ahead. What were you doing?
Yeah, all planned.
It was all planned. I meant to do that.
That there's still a playground out there for the little companies, the medium companies. They can still compete. I got a Friday table that's coming out March 29th. I've got a
Nice.
Wednesday table that
Now
they're
these are all
talking
still
about
D&D.
now.
Now we have to actually specify.
Well, so our Monday night studio game will be Daggerheart every other week,
Cool.
and Candela Obscura every other week. So
Cool.
next Monday we're creating characters and walking through the entire character creation process from beginning to end. And then, we'll play Candela the following week, and then play our first session of Daggerheart the week after that. So we're gonna do that for the Monday one. Tuesday will remain my custom world for D&D, but I'm hoping to have a Wednesday Daggerheart table spun up next week.
Nice.
Yeah. 3 Miles, they're pretty deep in the arc, so they've got maybe only a couple, 2-3 months left of arc. So they've already been kind of given the warning they need to start thinking about what they want to do for campaign 2. And they're an amazing group. If anyone out there hasn't watched them on Sunday night yet, they're a lot of fun. They have a solid vibe, like a solid energy, just really good group.
Cool.
Other than that, I mean, I've just been having a blast.
Can I join that table and destroy that vibe and wreck it all? Hey, you guys playing cards?
Hey.
Cards?
Do you guys got your Vorpal weapons? Because you're just shit without your Vorpal weapons.
That's awesome. I'm really excited to hear how your well, I know your Candela tables are going really well, but I'm really excited.
Yeah, those were fun. We did 15 chapters for my Thursday night group, but I need Thursdays off now. I need a day off. I wasn't getting enough. I wasn't getting enough creative days, and that's really what keeps you. Yeah, that's really what keeps me healthy. Yep, trademark. Thanks for the corporate strike, copyright strike.
I did just finish all of the overlays and framing and all that shit for all the Daggerheart stuff you've seen, the live stream and all the videos.
This is why I want everyone to at least try this game, is because they did it completely.
My design on the overlays. Oh, thank you.
You're so full of shit. Anyways, so from my perspective, the thing that I absolutely loved about how they decided to move forward with the game is they put the entire thing out there for open beta.
Yeah.
That is
amazing. A very pertinent point. I opened up the document and I'm like, oh, I'll do a little bit of reading before the show. And it's 377.
Yeah, it's all the pages. Like, it's all of it.
Hey, Lee, we are talking Daggerheart. Thanks for joining us. Yeah.
Yes, we are.
Yeah, that is really amazing that they put everything out there. You
have no idea. Like, I'm gonna go to the local store and I'm gonna have all of my open beta material turned into card stock, so that it could be actual cards when they cut it apart, like the way it's designed. And here's the thing: a good transition about the fact that they rolled out as open beta. Watsy, hey Watsy, go fuck yourself. This is how you design a game. This is how you engage the community.
Okay,
how
you have to get me your rant cam frame because we only have mine, okay? And we need yours too. But I'm going to put mine up for your rant because I agree with you.
Yeah, right?
No,
I mean, before we dive into the meat on the bone, like Watsy threw the community its first bone recently. And so its first bone it threw to the community is that for the 50th anniversary, they're partnering up with Start Playing, the game professional GM hosting site, for a handful of events.
Yeah, I saw that.
And I'm like, that's cool and all, but it's fucking useless. It just feels like a tepid bullshit. You know what I mean? But then I went over to Demiplane because Demiplane is a very interesting platform.
Demiplane, by the way, is where, for those of you who don't know, is where the Daggerheart beta lives.
Yes, but here's what I found really interesting. I didn't realize they had rolled out Nexus. So Nexus is their integrated software platform for like 7 gaming systems.
Oh, that I didn't know.
Yeah, so if you're like brand new and you
Mhm.
haven't bought any digital product yet, I would highly recommend skipping D&D Beyond and go do it at Nexus. It's a
Hmm.
much better platform. You can play everything from Pathfinder to Obscura to 5e. You can still play 5e,
Huh.
but you play it in their platform
I'll have to check that
area,
out.
right? So
Yeah,
it's a
let's
very
not
it's very
focus on
intuitive.
WotC because they're it's you're
No, I
right.
know, but I wanted to put it out there
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
that if for anyone interested in trying a new fantasy system that blends dice rolls, card building, loadouts, and traditional theater of the mind, as well as being a non-initiative terrain battle map that you can use as well, and you really want to explore in-depth narrative gaming, this is the system for you. It
Yeah.
really is.
Yeah.
Um, it's got some nuances I'm a little unsure about.
Same.
Uh, the economy has me concerned. A lot of people like to loot the bodies and still have a lot of value to an economy system. So I think maybe their economy system is still very nuanced and could
Mhm.
be more advanced. Um, like their
I'm also
economy system is a fistful of coins is equal to a bag of coins, equal to a chest of coins, equal to a fortune. So there's a conversion, and they do that because they don't want it to be the core of the game for them, right? They want it to be
well, there's a
the artwork of the game, not
yeah,
necessarily part of the game.
there's an intro, there's one of the paragraphs that says if you really like crunchy systems, this might not be for you. And I know we've had many
Well, I got to tell you, it's pretty character crunchy though.
character crunchy, yes,
Yeah, I
but
mean,
and
it's
again,
definitely
I
character
haven't
crunchy.
read enough into I've read a decent amount, but I haven't read enough into it to make a lot of these assumptions yet. But it does seem like there's a lot of character crunchiness, which is great, but I think that's got to be supported by world crunchiness. And you and I have talked about this many times that I'm of the opinion that you can have both. You can have a crunchy system as long as it is doesn't bog you down, and you could still have
Right.
narrative play. You can have a framework that you can use um, to add some crunch as long as it doesn't hamstring you. And
Well,
like couple it because
so
another thing I didn't know about the economy thing. I hadn't gotten there yet. But another thing is I know that it only levels up to 10. And right away, that was, my head is like, well, if you're doing levels, one the one thing I always hated about World of Warcraft was the end game shit. You'd get to the end and it's like, okay, I grind it up and now I'm level 85 or 90, whatever the fuck it was. Then there's all this
right.
end game shit, and it seemed like just kind of pointless to collect, a bunch of armor and crap like that. And it's like either get rid of the levels, to your point, um, or why I don't know why stop at 10. And obviously, and again, all this is with a grain of salt. They say this repeatedly in the intro that this is just beta and it can change, and that's why they put it out. So I'm not bashing it at all. I'm just thinking through it. But 10 levels struck me as odd. Like, why stop at 10? Why not?
Well, it's still beta.
Yeah. Well,
Their
again,
their
yeah,
their feedback survey
everything
is
is under the umbrella of this is still
I
beta.
think I
So
finally understand the challenge with levels because I've read so many systems. I've explored building the system. Um, I think what levels truly represent is an opportunity to introduce advancement.
yeah.
And as long as your leveling system introduces a lot of complex advancement options, for example, a loadout, domains, uh, building off your foundation. Um, Leveling just becomes a nuance of what you're doing. So in Daggerheart,
In that, I
leveling
totally agree with you.
leveling doesn't feel like leveling to me when I
Okay.
look at what they do.
Okay.
Um, Based on what I've read and watched and kind of run through both some of the alpha play that was available back in the day, and then now the full beta material.
Mhm.
Number
Mhm.
one, they built their own core system, so it is a unique system.
Yes.
So it's called the duality dice. Now their
Which
system
I
name,
love. You want to explain that for everybody?
yeah. So the system has an actual name, and I can't find my notes. But what I find interesting about the duality dice is they built it around something called hope fear. So what they call the hope fear system, which means in the narrative perspective of play, consequence of dice rolls now have a lot more meaning.
Yes.
Linear dice rolling, like a D20 system, with the exception of those of us that take on the scaling of a DC result versus those that just treat it very linearly. Duality lets you fail, succeed based on the idea of the dice. So, for example, the duality system uses 2d12. You designate one of the dice as hope, which is usually the light colored dice, and then you designate, your horror dice or your darker colored dice as the fear dice. The DC system still has value in this game, which I think is amazing because it's a solid mechanic. DC, I shouldn't say system, mechanic. The DC mechanic is always going to be a solid mechanic for me. It really is an adaptable mechanic. Now, if you're doing an action, you're then going to do an action roll. So you take, the narrative is still pretty much the narrative. Okay, Brian, you're chasing after someone and you're trying to leap over from one rooftop over to the other rooftop. It's a pretty far distance. Go ahead and give me blah, blah roll, right? And in my head, I'm thinking it's a DC, 14. But you have some modifiers and some things that are going to work into this. So
Can I say one thing real quick?
Yeah.
There's gonna be a run on D12 dice now. The least utilized dice.
You still get to use them all, but I did like the fact they did pick one that doesn't get used that much. I think it's pretty intuitive.
Yeah.
So you take the 2d12 and you roll it. If you're dark, so if you roll a 8 and a 7, let's say a 15, but let's say you succeed with fear. The GM receives a fear token, right? And then you succeed, but with a consequence.
Mm-hmm.
So as you leap over, you barely make it over and you're holding onto the edge and you feel yourself, slam into the edge really hard. You take a stress. Yep. Then you mark a stress, right?
Or I jumped over an iron portcullis, snagged my pants, made the jump, but ripped a big hole in my pants.
Or you didn't injure yourself, but you caused stress.
Yeah.
And that's what I like about it. They use the stress system. They use a hope system. They use here. Are you ready for it? You ready for this? They use a pool of options as a result.
Mm-hmm.
Something that we've been talking about for years,
for ages,
forever.
And what I like is that that pool extends beyond just those dice. There's D6 advantage dice that you can get. People can help you. Other players can help you.
Correct. Or you have a +2 on your agility. Therefore, you roll a +2. But let's introverse it, right? So inverse it. Let's say you roll a 15 with hope, right? So as you roll a 15, but hope is the higher die, not only do you make what you were doing, like you were successful, but you did it with hope. You add a hope point to your pool. So you mark off a hope point, which means you have hope. Hope is currency throughout the entire game.
Yeah.
You can use
think
it to
of
help
it's
people.
Kind of like inspiration dice, but much more than that.
Oh, it's better because it's not like limited to a value, like a single value. Like inspiration has a single value of the result of a single die. A hope can be used in infinite ways throughout the game. So that's one cool thing. The thing I really love is doubles have value.
Yes.
Doubles always succeed.
Well, so doubles are always a critical.
Well, no, they're
and
always
a success.
Well, no, they're
critical
always
success.
they're always a critical success.
Yes, yes.
So even if the DC is a 15 and you roll double ones, it's still a critical success.
Yes.
That is a direct influence, I think, from Baldur's Gate. The idea that something is so impossible, you don't have a possibility of succeeding, they added that doubles mechanic to really give it a lot more economy, you know, and give it a lot more opportunity as well.
I think the most interesting thing about this about their mechanic is what you said, that you can still fail or succeed, but fail well or succeed badly. You know,
right?
There are more facets than just. I mean, you know, everybody's been there in D&D. And I'm not knocking D&D, but you know, it's like, oh, it's my turn after 20 minutes, and okay, I'm gonna do this, and I missed, and that's it, my turn's done. You know, it's like, eh. So just you know, the depth that they put into even a single action, you know, the depth of outcomes is really awesome, in my opinion.
So building a character feels more valuable to me now, like watching and reading everything about building a character.
Yeah.
I have to be honest, I've been running games for so long that they actually get rid of a lot of things I hate to run within a game. Initiative goes away. A lot of the time dilation stuff kind of begins to fade with the system. A lot of the unnecessary crunch of combat and a bit more of the theater of the mind. But the way that the combat system is so cool. Like, the players build off their success.
Yeah.
So they could go and go and go and go, but their success is also their detriment. So let's say 15 of them are successful, but on the 16th person, they finally fail. Well, the DM now has 15 fear tokens, right?
Potential.
Or I'm sorry, 15 action tokens. So not fear tokens, but action tokens. Now the DM or the GM, they actually call the GM.
Yes.
The GM can convert those tokens to activate their GM moves.
Yeah.
The GM is nothing more than a facilitator during combat, but also having the narrative creativity of how that combat unfurls. But
I think what they've done is they and they alluded to this also in the early pages. I think they've given the GM more of a role to enjoy the game than just
they have to, because the game's narrative. So once again, the players have all the license now, just like in Obscura. They have all the license, they have all the creativity, they have all the control over their action economy, which means their creativity combined with their narrative, they are doing a lot of the play. The GM in Daggerheart is a professional facilitator, also a professor or a professional narrator. Like, you're an actual storyteller in this game because of the way the narrative works with the mechanics and the flow of play and the way that
I guess what I'm saying is I feel like the GM is more a part of the mechanics.
No, I think it actually takes them out.
Really?
I think
maybe I need to absorb more of it and
the way the characters are built, the GM really is there to facilitate certain roles, very certain roles. The narrative creativity comes with the out of kind of combat stuff and the out of, you know, countdown stuff. They actually refer to it as a countdown method, depending on what the interaction is going. Now, when that's
I'm going to throw up a character sheet here just so people can take a look at it. Keep talking with what you were talking about.
Now, building a character is so much super fun. It's like, I don't even care that much about building characters in general because I never get to play. So why should I care?
Oh my God, it's one of my favorite things.
Like, why should I care? I never get to play. So from a perspective of the value of the character, and the way that character is brought uniquely into the world, and we'll talk about how they help you build the world from scratch. Yeah, exactly, Lieberg. It's the Morgan Freeman style of storytelling. It's very much feels like that kind of approach a little bit. The character, you actually pick the class before you know your spec. So you go through and you pick your class. Some of the classes are warrior, seraph.
So I've got them right here. It's Bard, Druid, Guardian, Ranger, Rogue, Seraph, Sorcerer, Warrior, Wizard.
So you actually pick your class first.
Okay.
You don't roll ability rolls at all. They don't happen in this game. You have stats, right? You have agility, strength, finesse, instinct, presence, and knowledge. And they actually help you understand what those things are directly underneath that as well. But when you go to build your character, you're building a character in a way that allows you to almost kind of like build a story in a kind of way. So the very first thing you do is you choose a class. The next thing you do is you choose a subclass, or what's called a foundation. And right now, each class comes with 2 starting foundations. Once you pick your foundation, so we'll use warrior as an example, right? So yeah, I know, right? It's so true. So once you pick your class, we'll pick a warrior just because it's easier to walk through. You then choose your subclass. And for a warrior, your subclass foundation is one of 2 choices, called the Slayer or called the Brave. This starts you on your path. Once you pick your subclass, you then build your heritage. Your heritage is made up of your ancestry and your community. Your ancestry could be Dracona, Qatari, Fairy, Fawn, Galapa, Human, Goblin, Fungrel, Furbog, Simiat. I mean, they've got a lot of ancestry to choose from, which is really cool. Then you choose your community that you come from. Your community is Highborn, Ridgeborn, Seaborn, Underborn, Wildborn, Loreborn. But these choices all have value to your
Jason
class,
Bourne?
your subclass.
Can I be Jason Bourne?
No, you are hereby Oldborn. Oldborn. Oldborn is what you are. Oldborn. Which is really cool, right? So on top of that, you then pick, you set your traits, you set your evasion. So traits are the stat that I was talking about. So traits are agility, strength, finesse, instinct, presence, and knowledge. Those are your traits.
Rant
So you don't actually roll for your traits. What you do is for your traits, you get a -1, a 0, a 0, a +1, a +1, and a +2. And you can put those anywhere you want in your traits, anywhere you want. There's no order or anything. But because you already know your warrior, your foundation, your heritage, that by the time you get to your traits, you know where you want to put them because you've kind of built the.
That's a really, really interesting approach because scores are pointless, but for their modifiers. So who gives a fuck about the scores themselves?
I love the fact that they have completely changed how armor class works. Officially
that is my favorite thing I think so far is how the armor and the damage works.
You get this evasion. Your evasion is what it takes to hit you. There's one bit of the armor I'm a little unclear about. I got to go find my notes. But so you start with a 10 evasion. If for some reason your agility is a -1, then your evasion drops to 9. If you wear heavy armor, your evasion drops another 2. So it drops to 7.
Mm-hmm.
However, your armor gives you an armor of 9. So I think the way it works is that if I have to roll your evasion or higher to hit you, right? If you've
Mm-hmm.
got armor, my to hit has to exceed your armor value to do damage. And then any damage above
Now,
the armor
I
value.
think, if I'm not mistaken, I think you have the choice of mitigating the
Well,
damage with your armor at
that's
the
armor
expense
soak.
of at
Well,
the
hold on,
expense of the
because
armor.
that's armor
Okay.
soak, and we'll get to that in a minute. So
Okay.
if your armor is a 9 and they roll an 18 to hit you,
Mm-hmm.
you then say, I want my armor to soak one of its points.
Mm-hmm.
So that 18 drops to a 9, which then lowers the threshold and the amount of damage they potentially do to you.
And damages your armor.
Right. And here's the best part. Weapons don't really have damage anymore. Right? So the way they matriculate or use the asymmetry of the weapon value, if you've got a longsword, it gives you plus 2d8 on your hit roll. So you roll your d12. Sorry, it's plus 2d8 for your damage threshold. So you roll your 2d12. Okay. Let's say you roll an 18, and let's say you have a bonus of a plus 5, which makes it a 23. I clearly beat the opponent's evasion. The opponent doesn't have any armor, so they take 23 as a hit. I then go to the threshold indicator, and I do 9. Let's say I do 5 points of severe damage to that target. Well, if I'm using a longsword that's plus a 1d8, I would roll a d8 on top of my 2d12 on top of my bonuses. That total value determines where it sits on the threshold and whether I do minor, major, or severe damage. So you only have to do it's kind of an homage to Thaco. It's a little bit of an homage to Thaco, where you have a sliding scale of chance, and the only math you need to know is whether or not you exceed a number, as opposed to the determination of adding multiple numbers up for different requirements to a certain degree, right? So if I have an evasion of 9, and let's say that person has a special ability that boosts their evasion in combat up to a 15, and I roll a 20, the total amount rolled, I believe, is what the... Hold on a sec. Let me think about that.
No. The damage number is your thresholds. And that determines whether you mark off 1, 2, or 3 hit points.
Correct. So the combat is more kind of like, whether you're, there's bonuses for the weapons that you use as a particular character, right? So once you've determined that you've hit somebody, the determination of damage is based on the total number of the dice thrown, and then you take a look at your threshold, and the threshold determines how many hit points you take. That way you're not having to ever get into the calculus of 192 hit points.
Yeah,
that doesn't exist in this game at all.
So you've only got, like, on average 6 hit points,
right? And don't get me wrong, your threshold can be boosted.
Yeah,
right, as you level up, as you take new domains,
as can your hit points, but not the way D&D does it. We're talking a very, very low range.
Right. So I
was talking about this. I was talking about this on Slack earlier. It was either yesterday or today. I think it was yesterday. About that's another thing that I'm really excited for these mechanics. You always kid me for being resistant to change, and I'm really looking at this whole game with very open eyes, because one of the things that always bothered me in D&D is once you get past about 70 or 80 hit points, you're, for all intents and purposes, unkillable. Right?
Well,
I mean, it gets to the point
you have
where
to
you're
be
not
a little
unkillable, but
more
it gets to the point
creative
where
to
it's like,
challenge it. Yeah.
yeah, it's like, I'll take this fireball to the face. You know, I got 100 more hit points after this.
Well, I
this
think a
40
really good
damage.
example of the kind of the OP factor is at level 10. Basically, if a rogue saves on a deck save,
Mm-hmm.
they ignore damage.
I'm not even talking about specific class. I'm just talking about how hit points work in D&D in general. There's a point at which you
Yeah.
get so many hit points where death really is not scary anymore because the chances of your character dying are so low. You know what
They're
I'm saying?
definitely mitigated by certain OP factors. I would agree
Yeah,
with that.
yeah. And I like that ultimately, and I know that there's a lot to go in it that goes into figuring out how many actual hit points you lose. But I'm really liking the notion that you only have 5, 6, 7, hit points.
Yeah.
And no matter how, I don't even want to say what level you are, no matter how powerful you are,
Right.
you could the chance of dying is seemingly, without having played
And
yet,
they
is
have a
bad.
new creative death system that's really
Yeah,
cool.
yeah. I really like that.
As you create your character, you can also establish 2 experiences. One experience is worth +2, and the other experience is +1. And it actually requires the player to uniquely create an experience based on their character.
Mhm.
So, let's say you're a bard and I want to go, you know what? My +2 is going to be last word in every argument. So anytime that I'm interacting and I'm trying to get the last word in, I get a +2 to that roll.
Mhm.
But I create it as my own thing. And that's what that experience section is for. You actually, every level or every tier within 3 levels, like, so you see the level 2 through 4, level 5 through 7, level 8 through 10. Those are based on tier systems. So during those leveling, you do something at level 2, 3, and 4. But you don't get new things to do until you get to level 5 because now you're tier 2. Remember how we talked about, pools of skills within pools of skills?
Yes.
They've kind of done that here a little bit because they've also built a loadout system. So when you start building your domains based on what you choose for domains, those domains get not only picked as you level up, but as you play the game, your loadout can change either during a rest, if you don't want to take stress, or your loadout can change in the middle of combat, but you take a stress equal to the number on the domain. So for example, Nimble with the 1 lightning bolt, that means you would take a stress to swap that domain in the midst of a combat situation.
It's like prepared spells and being able to play with that.
But better than that, it's like it really allows the kind of taxonomy.
I'm speaking in generalizations. You keep shutting me down. All of my analogies you keep shutting down.
That's because analogies like that are very boomerish.
Fuck you, man.
Fuck you, old man. But that's true. I mean, but one of the things
I'm speaking in the simplest way to look at it for somebody who has no clue what's going on, in this game.
Always just 2-letter words for you. I get it.
Huh? Oh shit, that's 3 letters.
But so
no, it is very cool.
I went into my notes. They actually I think they haven't really named their system yet. Because they call it a asymmetrical design.
Yes, yeah.
Is what they call it by.
Yeah.
They call it an asymmetrical design. And I think that's what they've built here. They've built a very fun way.
I mean, look at this. They've just as an aside to your very first point about they put everything out there. They even give you pages of the cards to print and cut lines.
Yeah, I'm taking these to Staples and have them printed on cardstock.
That's pretty impressive for for an open beta of a major game system.
And the best part is, even when you level up, you can still go back to your previous levels to choose domains from lower levels. So by the time you're level 7, your loadout could be huge.
Yeah.
And then you have to manage your loadout. But if you're
Right.
into like the whole card thing, it's a great
It does
attention
have-
span killer, right? Because if you're doing it with cards, you're not overwhelmed by a character sheet.
Yeah.
Because you have
Yeah.
your cards helping you do the work.
Now your loadout is 5. Your loadout is 5 cards, and then you
Correct.
have a vault. So it's
Right.
that's why I say it's kind
Your
of
vault
like
gets big. Yeah, your
kind of
vault
like
gets
prepared
bigger.
spells. I want
Yeah.
these 5 cards in my loadout. If I need to go into the vault, I can do it at the expense of stress and whatnot. It's very cool.
But
very cool.
I love how their design blends a lot of generational play.
Yeah.
You still have traditional dice. You have card collection. You have a unique kind of new way to build your character. You diminish the overwhelming nature of... So the damage die compared to your threshold, right? So if your damage die is a D10 plus 2 and you roll an 8 and then you add 2 for 10, then that determines
where you are on the threshold.
Where it is on your threshold and how many points of damage you take.
Right. So in that case, say you roll a 9 and your threshold is 3, 11, and 15, it would be a minor wound and you take 1.
Right.
You know what else struck me that I really also liked is the range.
Yeah.
So if you look at the range here,
the
range
short,
is melee
and long. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's melee, which is touch, like you said, very close, which is like 5 to 10 feet.
Yep.
Close, which is like 20 to 30.
Yep.
Far, which is 30 to 100, and then very far, which is
anything beyond the 100.
Shoot a longbow in the air and hope that it is. That's really cool. So it sounds to me like this, were you to use maps and miniatures, does this get rid of the grid system?
Yeah, it does.
Okay.
It kind of does, because basically...
So it's much more Warhammer-esque, where it's like, here's a tape measure and it's short range, or it's very close or close. Yeah, that's very cool also. I like that.
Which, once again, the flow of combat moves quicker.
Yeah.
You could now have 4 or 5 combat rounds in a session and not feel burdened by a 3-hour combat round.
Wow.
It's you could do combat. They say you go into a turn-based system, or you use you use your battle map based on if you think it's going to go longer than 2 rounds. So your battle could end up only being 2 rounds and you're done. But if you need a battle map aid for your battle, then you throw out your map and your miniatures and your terrain and you fight it out. When I was watching their session 0, they started not their session 0, session 1, their one shot they played. They did that
the live stream. Yeah, Monday night.
The live one. That was amazing because their combat was very intense and super cool, but it took like 35-40 minutes.
Wow.
Yeah, it was
instead of 2.5 hours.
Yeah, it flowed really well. There was a lot of like friendly activity with this game. Is definitely a co-op game.
Yeah.
If you like PvP and evil, you will not like this game. You won't. It is definitely not for people who want a super crunchy, heavy mechanics, long, style of D&D game. This is very different. And the key factor that makes it super different, even though it's a minor issue, you don't have to worry about supplies anymore. You just write on your character sheet, basic supplies. And as you go through the world, if you need a piece of chalk, it's assumed you have it. If you need a small handful of caltrops or ball bearings, it's just kind of assumed that you have it. If you need a lantern or a torch, those are all just basic supplies, right? So they kind of...
There's not going to be no more shopping sessions?
I think shopping sessions are going to change. Yeah, I think that,
I
think they're going to be more focused on weapons, armor, magic. Because let's be honest, almost all of the shopping sessions in a lot of either fun games that you're playing in or are Critical Role games that you've watched, they've been at magic shops or specialty shops or
Well, of course.
If they're buying potions or magic items or magic
Yeah, of
weapons or
course.
magic
You don't go into
armor.
yeah.
Yeah.
Fair,
So
fair.
I think they've just kind of codified what we all
Mhm.
have already been doing. No one goes into a general goods shop anymore. Who gives a fuck? We just assume
You
those
just order
basic
it from
supplies exist.
from ye old Amazon.
Yeah, exactly. Ye old Amazon.
How about this? Okay, it's we're trying to keep down to 45 minutes.
Well, I think we should do
this
part. I
fucking
think
flew
we should
by.
call. I think we should call this session part 1. This and next week,
It's exactly what I was gonna.
I think we should just build a character from scratch.
I was gonna suggest the same exact thing, Jason Baldrick.
And then the following week, part 3, we'll do an actual combat demo so that people can see how it works.
Perfect, because I'm going to have all this shit read by next Thursday because yeah.
There's very little of it I have much negativity for. Like I'm actively trying to find. I think they're going to struggle with the treasure thing because people love treasure. So I think that will be a bit of a struggle.
Yeah.
I think if you're a newer GM and you're not comfortable with narrative, you might struggle a little bit. I think if you're not interested in a co-op game, you don't want to play this game. It's very much a co-op game. And I think as a player, if you're not super cool with being spontaneous, adaptive, and willing just to be super creative and interactive, you'll definitely struggle at this game. I'm not going to lie about that.
Interesting.
It may help you come out of your shell. I don't know. That would be an interesting kind of
the beauty is, as we said at the top of the show, is that this is beta. And it give you
the whole thing, man.
Yeah.
Everything
is open to change.
Cool.
Yeah. Which is why they did this.
Surveys are cool. They're everything about they're the antithesis of watching a corporation build a new edition versus a community-driven way of building.
Well, and there's a very simple reason for that. It's because the core group, Matt and Travis and everybody, they still run things. They're in charge.
Gamers run it.
Gamers run it. Legendary Pictures bought them, and from my knowledge, has left them completely hands off. You do your thing, and that's why.
Creativity will flourish.
Yep.
All right, Brian, where can we find you?
All right, you can find me as always. First of all, so we had a whole bunch of new people join us in the chat on Instagram on the RPG stream. So we may, until we get our viewership up, we may have to have a meeting tomorrow and talk about, we're still going to do Twitch, okay, but we may, and YouTube, but I don't know. Thank you guys all for joining us over on RPG & Co. Instagram. Our standbys here. We got 3 Miles. We got other Dantana Colin. We've got Lee Berg over in our
YouTube's.
Where is this? Twitch and YouTube's Twitch chat. So thank you all for joining. It really does. It really does make our shows.
Yeah, I wish the Instagram chat would show up in stream.
I know. We're kind of splitting it there, so we need to.
Well, I'm wondering if StreamYard has that as an ask right now. It could be an ask.
Could be, yeah. But anyway, regardless, wherever you join us, whether it's chat here or chat on Instagram or just watching VOD afterwards, thank you all. It's awesome.
And where can we find you, Brian?
You can find me at RPG and Co, not ampersand, RPGandco on Instagram. Also head over to Linktree, RPG and Co. And visit the website, playrpgandco.com. And yeah, hit me up with DM. I love chatting. Jason, what about you?
You can find me over at Linktree, TTRPG Academy, or Twitch, YouTube, TTRPG Academy as well. Easy to find. Come join our Discord. We officially hit 400 people recently.
Nice. So I know that was one of your thresholds there. Awesome.
Yeah, we're actually kind of at that point right now, and we have a lot of conversations going on there. And if you're a lurker, come lurk. If you're a chatter, come chat. Other than that, hey, Brian, TPK.
Well, before TPK, just one thing. So Next week, again, we're gonna break our new format a little bit, and
Yes.
we're just gonna be talking about Daggerheart.
Yeah. Well,
So,
next week will be part 2. We'll focus
part
on
2.
an actual character build.
Yeah.
And then the following week, part 3, we will focus on an actual demo of how combat works. And then we'll probably make it the month of Daggerheart. And then part 4, we'll kind of wrap it up with our opinions of the knowing the game in a little bit. Because I'll have a couple sessions under my belt
Perfect.
running Daggerheart. I'd like to give some feedback on that.
Perfect.
This may be one of the more kind of newer, exciting systems we've had come out in a while. And it's going to be interesting. It's going to be fun.
Yeah, I'm gonna go out and stock up on D12s, man.
Yeah, I'm not worried about dice. So TPK, Brian.
Tell a story.
Play a game.
And be kind. Thank you, everybody.
Good night, everybody.